It's Thursday, May 21st, 2020. Many of us have come to the point in our lives where we've learned that things can't permanently satisfy us because they don't last forever. Things aren't permanent. We've also learned by experience the truth of what Jesus meant when he said that we shouldn't store up treasures here on earth. He said that because the finest clothes can be eaten by moths, the most expensive cars and boats can be destroyed by rust, the most lavish houses on the planet can be brought down by dry rot or termites, and the most valuable gold and diamond jewelry is impervious to rust and other things that might destroy it, but that's what attracts thieves to jewelry and gold. And even if you can manage to keep all the moths and rust and all the dry rot and thieves at bay, there is no guarantee for any of us that we'll ever be able to enjoy the fortune that we've amassed, since neither today nor tomorrow come with a guarantee that we will live to see the end of the day. Now, again, I don't mean to be morbid, and I'm not trying to ruin your day, but it's time to finally come to terms with the idea that our hearts are hungry, and that hunger will not go away of its own accord. Instead, it will continue to plague us until we take steps to satisfy it. Hunger doesn't go away, it has to be put away. But the older we get, the more clearly we see that nothing on earth can take that hunger away for more than a few moments at a time. C.S. Lewis said something that brings remarkable clarity to what we've been trying to say. He said, "I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy. The most probable explanation, then, is that I was made for another world." I love the way he phrases that, because he doesn't speak of a desire that no thing can satisfy, and he doesn't speak of a desire that no person can satisfy. He speaks instead of a desire that no experience can satisfy. Experience is an all-inclusive word because we experience getting or not getting the things that we desire. We experience having or not having a relationship with that person that we desire. But no experience can satisfy the deep desire within us. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 4:18, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." It's simple, really. If you can see it, it's temporary. And that means that the only things in this world that are eternal are the things that we cannot see. And you would think that that would change the kind of things that we're willing to spend our lives chasing. And as if life weren't already complicated enough, we've just been forced to make up our minds to spend our lives chasing things that we can't see. So maybe we need to spend some time talking about how we can chase something when we can't see it, because if we could figure that out, we'd be able to understand what Jesus meant when he told us that while we live here on earth, we should look only for treasures that can be stored up in heaven. So let's talk about pursuing eternal treasure rather than throwing our lives away on the pursuit of emptiness. Early on in our discussions, we talked about the special joys of being loved by a father or mother, especially during those earliest days when you were the favored son or the princess in the home. You were a great big bundle of potentiality and everybody knew it. Now, I know that some of you didn't have that privilege. Some of you had fathers or mothers who simply were not available to you, either because they were away from home for extended periods of time or because they were present in the home physically but were emotionally or spiritually absent. In other words, some of you had parents who were living in the home, but in the truest sense of the word, they were not there for you. All you wanted from life was that they would notice and accept you. I've often talked with women who are adults and married with their own children, whose eyes fill with tears as she tells the story of putting on her prettiest dress and her mommy's shoes when she was a little girl to go into the living room where Dad was reading his newspaper. She stands in front of him and spins around, just hoping he'll put the paper down and notice her, just hoping that he'll smile and say, "You make that dress look beautiful." But as she spins, he keeps his nose in the paper, and he doesn't even seem to notice that she's there. You knew intuitively that you needed to be loved, but for one reason or another, the most important people in your life withheld that from you. Now, we can say that their failure to love you and respect you and notice you was most certainly due to their own personal shortcomings. not yours. And that would be true, but something that is also true is that there's small comfort in knowing that my being unloved was not my fault. It just doesn't seem to help me personally when I tell myself that the real reason my father struggled to express his love to me is because his father struggled to express his love to him. Somehow it doesn't make me feel better to realize that my dad struggled with me because his dad struggled with him. I just can't find comfort from the idea that my father was in pain. So for some of us, our parents just weren't there for us when we needed them, but for others of us, it was worse. Some of you were abused by your parents or abused by someone else while you were in your parents' care. The impact of that is devastating because childhood abuse is so much more soul damaging than the abuse that comes into our lives as adults. Now, I don't say that to scare you, but only to encourage you not to be afraid to get the help that you need. But the cold, hard truth is this: every one of us here today needs to be loved. It makes no difference whether our parents were awesome or awful, because neither they nor anyone else in our lives have ever had the capacity to love us as tenaciously and eternally as our hearts desire and even demand. So we all need to be loved, but we need a love that isn't going to run out at the end of the marriage, or at the end of the school year, or when we move away. We need a love that won't expire when the person who loves us is no longer with us. We need a love that is as eternal as the human soul. I don't know whether you know this or not, but there's a psychological term that healthcare professionals apply to a person who needs to be loved. Do you know what that term is? Do you know what psychologists call someone who needs to be loved? Psychologists call it normal. All human beings need to be loved unconditionally. Proverbs 19 verse 22 says, what a person desires is unfailing love. But compare that to Proverbs 20 verse 6, where it says, many a man claims to have unfailing love, but a faithful man who can find? In French, it's je t'aime. In Spanish, it's te quiero. In Italian, it's ti amo. In English, it's I love you. All of those are sweet sounding phrases that a man might whisper into the ear of a woman. Of course, in German, it's ich liebe dich, and I'm not sure how you would whisper that into a woman's ear. But that aside, a man means it when he whispers those things into the ear of a woman. Ladies, your husband meant it when he whispered that to you, and I'm sure you meant it when you whispered it back to him. But those of us who are married and living with this pledge of love all know that there are those days. So important to me that we all realize that it's perfectly all right to feel the need to be loved with a love that's lasting and unbreakable. It's perfectly all right to feel the need to be loved in that way. That need to be loved is part of the human heart, and it's a need that we all sense, that we all feel. And even God himself has recognized that we legitimately feel this need, and he has spoken to this need in his word. Well, my time is up again. And once again, I'd like to encourage you to end this time in prayer. Open your Bible to Proverbs 19:22 and compare that to Proverbs 20, verse 6. Pray through those verses and ask God to open your eyes and reveal to you how true it is that unfailing love is something that we all desire. Ask God to reveal to you how often you've relied on other people to love you with an unfailing love, only to find that their love for you ran short at a time when you needed it most. You may have resented them for that at the time, and you may have allowed it to ruin the relationship you had with him or her. As you think in these terms, ask God to heal your heart. Ask him to reveal to you that you shouldn't have pressured other people to fill those empty spaces within you. Ask him to whisper to your heart and help you to understand his passion for seeing that the joy come back into your heart. The joy that comes from knowing that there really is someone who wants to take away all the pain that comes from feeling unloved. Let's talk again tomorrow.